Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? So, welcome to the first of 4 sessions focused on screening for positive and adverse childhood experiences to improve parenting and health outcomes. I'm Roger Sherman. I'm the director of the Idaho Children's Trust Fund, which is also the state affiliate of Prevent Child Abuse America. We as an organization focus on preventing child abuse and neglect before it occurs, and we're really excited about the opportunity this learning collaborative provides to collaborate in this work. I was previously involved in the 2019 learning collaborative as well, so have been involved in this process for a bit. So thank you for your participation in the learning opportunity. You are in a unique position to strengthen families and support the next generation through the skills and knowledge you'll gain through these sessions. So if we could, I think does everybody here know each other? Maybe we can just quickly go around and just give your name and your clinical setting and where you're located. Tom, you want to start?
Sure. Tom Patterson, pediatrician with Full Circle Health, and I was the medical director who ran the first ACE Learning Collaborative, planned the second ACE Learning Collaborative, and have been blessed to work on this Learning Collaborative as well. So it's been great.
Claudia?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Claudia Coatney, and I work for the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, Division of Public Health, and I help out as needed with the collaborative. I'm happy to be here.
Susan?
You're muted.
Muted, sorry.
I'm also technologically challenged, but anyway, I am a pediatrician with Full Circle Health, and I work in the Meridian Clinic most of the time.
Thanks, Susan. Katie?
Hey, I'm Katie Myers. I'm actually an intern with Full Circle Health, the Boise program.
Yay. You're the ones we want to learn this stuff now. Perfect. Dr. Davis?
Hi, Keith Davis, Family Medicine in Shoshone, Idaho. And I'm independent practice. I do consulting work for Family Health Services and FQHC in my area. And I'm a hospice physician. I've had full scope practice in the past. No longer do obstetrics. I'm no longer the county coroner. I'm no longer on call for the hospital. So I've slowed things down a bit, but still busy with the things that I enjoy doing.
Great, thank you. Dr. Mansour?
Unmute, please. I'm on mute.
Susan, you're not alone in the technically challenged. So I'm Savara, and I'm a pediatrician, and I've just recently come on with Full Circle Health as their associate program director for the new residency program. I've been a pediatric hospitalist down here at Magic Valley for last couple of years. So yeah, just happy to be here today.
Thank you. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm the new nursing supervisor for the pediatric residency at Full Circle Health. My background's almost 20 years of NICU, PEDS, and PICU. So excited to be here.
Great to have you. Lisa?
All right, let's see. Sorry, I'm eating lunch, so I've got my video off. But I'm Lisa. I'm a pediatrician. I just started with Full Circle Health 3 weeks ago, and Dr. Butt is also here. She just ran to grab some lunch real quick, and then she'll be on the call also.
Perfect. Liz?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Liz Paul, and I am working for the Idaho Children's Trust Fund, coordinating this project, and I helped coordinate the phase 1 last year as well. And you've probably gotten lots of emails from me.
Perfect. So as you see, we are recording this session. Just wanted to make sure you know that. Mostly for potential use by future participants. So we hope that it will be available. for folks to use into the future. So to the extent possible, if you would keep your cameras on, that would be great. If you're eating, of course, don't worry about it, and keep yourself muted. As I think you know, this session will be 1.5 CME. You'll get credit once you fill out the survey form, the evaluation and pretest that we'll put in the chat later, and we'll also send out to you after the session is over. So let's just make a quick review of the agenda. This one is just quickly, what happened to that, Liz? That was just that was some of the pre-work, which I hope you've had a chance to.
That was quick.
Go through. That was quick. And then if you would put up the full agenda for today, appreciate it. So you can kind of see we're gonna go through a couple of videos, and then we're gonna run through the overall, what the collaborative is, the agreement that we've talked about, the screening tool that we're encouraging people to use as we go forward on this, and then we're going to walk through the guidance document that hopefully you've had a chance to look at, and then talk about the homework and what we're looking at for the sessions going forward over these 4-session run. So overall, that's the plan. We'll go to 1:30 today. The next 2 sessions will be 2 hours, so hopefully you'll be able to, I know it's hard to get the time, but hopefully you can do that as well. So first video we're going to show is with Dr. Gillespie, and we really wouldn't be here today without the inspiration and wisdom that Dr. Gillespie has shared with us around this idea of screening for positive and adverse childhood experiences in order to improve the parent-child relationship. Dr. Gillespie is a primary care pediatrician at the Children's Clinic in Portland, Oregon. He's been working on parental ACE screening since 2013, and he'll be with us for session 2 in October. And some of you probably met him in the 2019 session if you were part of that. So he's also agreed to answer email questions throughout the collaborative. So we're going to have a Ask Dr. Gillespie or something like that email that you can send to. And so he's recorded this short video for us to share with you today.
Well, we're very happy to have with us today Dr. R.J. Gillespie, as Roger just introduced. And we're going to take a few minutes and chat with him a little bit. I've got a few questions prepared. So you've pioneered a new approach to improving the health of the children that you see. You see them from their first minutes of some of them. So you started taking some time at that 4-month well baby visit to gather information from the parents, not about how their kids are doing, but about the parents' childhood by talking to the parents about their adverse and positive childhood experiences. You're going to do a screening. So why does the parents' childhood matter?
Well, let me start by sharing a recent example of one of the conversations I had with the mother of a 4-month-old. Her ACE score was 9 with a couple of additional childhood traumas added in, and with relatively few positive childhood experiences to balance that. When I asked her how she thinks her history affects her parenting now, she said that she didn't have a particularly good relationship with her father, so her main question was, how do I make my relationship with my son as strong as it can be? It's such a great question because it really cuts straight to the chase, and it actually has a lot of layers. First of all, as pediatricians, we know that the relationship between kids and their caregivers is central to their healthy social and emotional development. If we want to be able to support safe, stable, nurturing relationships between parents and their children to ensure that healthy development, as clinicians, we have to focus on the things that get in the way of those relationships. That includes things like parental depression or the social determinants of health, but also parent trauma histories. In the words of Andy Gardner, one of the authors of Thinking Developmentally, it's hard for a parent to be in relational mode when they're in survival mode. Addressing these barriers to safe, stable, nurturing relationships from the perspective of the parents helps to highlight that we actually care about their health and wellness, and helps to ensure that our patients are getting the best start possible. In thinking about Mom's question a little further, the implication is that she doesn't know how to support a strong relationship with her son, primarily because she never had that modeled during her childhood. That's one of the ways that parental trauma gets in the way. If the parents of this generation didn't have a strong role model for positive parenting from the last generation, they look to us as pediatricians for help in filling that gap with knowledge and advice. That said, if we haven't asked the questions about their childhood, we don't know that the parent has that need, and parents often don't know that it's a subject we can address during a well visit. By taking the time to go through that history, we've opened the door for them to get these vitally important questions addressed. We also know that resilience is built and developed in relationship, so Mom's question is an open door for us to start helping build those resilience skills that will benefit them both. However, I know that I'm not going to answer Mom's question all at a single visit, so it's up to me to break it down a little bit at a time to reflect what's going on in her son's development at the moment. So during that visit, I talked to her about attachment and how to become a baby observer. That is, how she can watch for and respond to her child's bids for attention, and how that will strengthen the attachment relationship. I talked to her about the importance of positive childhood experiences and asked her to think about which ones she wants her son to experience so that she can set some intentions about making those experiences happen. Next time, I'll talk to her about time-ins, particularly in the context of daily reading and playtime. And at the visit after that, I'll talk to her about basic discipline in the context of parenting styles and about balancing empathy for her kid with expectations for their good behavior. That way, Mom gets a quick intervention at every visit that helps them to build resilience over time.
Oh, that's great to get, you know, some real life experience, which of course you've had a lot of, and to see how it's not a one and done sort of a thing, that this is an ongoing part of the parents developing their parenting skills. Right. Well, this mom was clearly engaged and, you know, ready to take some advice. But I was wondering, you know, if that's a common response, or, you know, do you find that parents think you're being nosy and that you're trying to somehow give them a test and judge their parenting ability by asking them, you know, about their childhood?
That's a great question, but in my experience, usually not. But I think that really depends on how well we set up the context for the questions with the family. For the most part, when parents have experienced trauma in their childhood, they have this fear in the back of their minds that they're going to repeat the mistakes from their childhood. Again, primarily because they don't have great role models for how to do parenting well. But I think when we open up the conversation, most parents are relieved to have their questions brought out into the open, and they actually really appreciate being able to address those worries with an expert in parenting and child development. There have, of course, been times that parents were really put off by the questions. Most commonly, that's when parents didn't get an introduction to the tool, a cover letter, or any other sort of context as to why the questions are being asked in the first place. One visit in particular comes to mind. When I walked into the room, Mom was visibly tense. You know, her jaw was clenched. She was tightly gripping the clipboard with the questionnaire in her hand. And when I walked in, I kind of read that tension and said, I think I owe you an explanation about that survey. And she very curtly replied, yes, you do. So I put my computer down. I sat down, talked to her about ACEs and about how those types of experiences might affect her parenting, and how I was committed to using the information to support her in her parenting journey. I told her that everything on the survey was completely optional and that anything she disclosed would be treated with the strictest confidentiality. With that explanation, I think Mom really relaxed, and she said, you know, that actually makes a lot of sense why you're asking these questions. And then we were able to engage in a meaningful conversation about her trauma and how that impacts her parenting today. I think when it comes down to it, parents do fear a couple of things. Primarily, it's judgment about their past and about their parenting ability, but they also worry about being reported to a government agency like Child Protective Services. They also fear that they actually won't be able to get help for the things that they disclose. And so I think when we do these kinds of surveys and these kinds of questions, we really have to provide context for the survey. We have to commit to confidentiality for the family. And then I think explaining what we're planning on doing with the information really helps to alleviate those fears on the part of the parents.
that sounds like a real positive impact then, or, way to be able to explain it to the parents and that they are enthusiastic participants, or at least not put off by it. But you're talking about just having some short conversations. They're in there trying to figure out if their kid's teeth are coming in, or why their kid, whatever, something about eating or sleeping or something like that. So how does this conversation, these pretty much short conversations, how do they lead to improved health of the child? Because at the end of the day, you want a healthy, you want your patient, that baby, that toddler, to be healthy.
I think one of the things that you pointed out that is really important to remember is that it's not a single short conversation, it's a series of conversations that happen over time. And I think that the conversation primarily improves health by changing the culture of practice. If parents know that we're willing to have tough conversations, that we've taken the time to get to know them and learn about their experiences, that their visits with their pediatrician are more tailored based on those particular conversations, and that we can provide some meaningful advice and guidance, they know that they can bring up all sorts of sensitive concerns during their visits. I've had dozens of conversations at visits subsequent to one of the screening visits where parents have brought up domestic violence, financial problems, food insecurity, and so on, because families now know that I'll figure out how to help them. Instead of struggling with those issues on their own, they've learned from me how their own stressors can impact their child's health, and they ask for help. When we examine things that build resilience in families, one of the primary ones really is simple education about trauma and its effects. And that's one of the ways that we're building stronger families, is by helping them understand those effects. I figure that as pediatricians, if we want to prevent ACEs in our patients and we want to promote positive childhood experiences, we have to start with the simple act of helping parents know what those things even are. Ultimately, I think what we're doing is tackling all those things that get in the way of safe, stable, nurturing relationships that we just talked about. Gradually, I think the interventions that we do during well visits are building more resilient parents and therefore more resilient kids by helping parents in very concrete ways in understanding their kids' development, in understanding how their own histories might impact their parenting decisions, and by giving simple things that they can do to build their relationship with their children. Ultimately, this helps to promote strong developmental trajectories for kids and results in stronger mental health for our patients as they grow.
So at the end of the day, you've been doing this for a while, and of course we get to hear a lot more from you next month. Our cohort will have a chance to ask you questions and really have a dialogue. But you feel like you do have healthier patients, meaning the children, and stronger
Absolutely.
Families? Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. And I have patients that come in, after giving them one of the resilience interventions, and they come into the visit just ready to hear the next one. Like, what's next? What am I going to learn today? And it's really a very different kind of anticipatory guidance than just talking about car seats or making sure people are brushing their teeth twice a day or whatever. It's far more meaningful in terms of helping parents to do deep resilience work rather than just basic childcare. So it really has been a transformational process for us.
And not to downplay your amazing skills and enthusiasm and experience, but do you think that if you can do it, that others can do it? Absolutely. I think that's one of the big lessons that we've learned, is that most of the skills that it takes to do this kind of work are things that are already in our tool belt, that maybe we haven't thought about them in this way before. But most of what we're talking about is really learning how to communicate with people and build relationships with people. It's not a special skill. It's not kind of, master level wizardry. It's everyday magic that I think every pediatrician can do within their daily practice. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to kick off our ACEs Learning Collaborative with us today, Dr. Gillespie. We can't wait to work with you again more next month. Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks a bunch.
I hope that was helpful in not, if not answering all the questions you have, but at least starting us down that road, because I know he sort of spoke to many of the things that we have heard from people as reasons, what makes this difficult. But, it's the everyday magic apparently. So hopefully we can help you develop those set of skills. Feel free to share some thoughts in the chat if you have them, and we can share that on the side. And then we are asking you you and your team to watch a 25-minute talk by Dr. Gillespie that was from a conference that he presented at that was done in January 2022. And so we'll send that out with homework materials at the end of the session. So next we have, Dr. Davis is here, but we invited him to do a quick video as well to give kind of a different perspective from a Idaho physician who's been involved in some of this work in a very rural community. Dr. Davis has been the only physician in Lincoln County for more than 30 years. He's in Shoshone. And he will be serving as a peer mentor as part of this process of us providing longitudinal support for the cohort of people involved in this effort. So Liz, why don't you go ahead and show Dr. Davis's, and Dr. Davis is right now is in DC just finishing the conference.
Well, I'm so happy to be able to introduce to everybody this morning, this afternoon, Dr. Keith Davis. And Dr. Davis is going to be participating throughout the duration of the ACES Learning Collaborative. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to ask him follow-up questions or continue to learn from him as our program goes on. But this morning he's going to make some opening remarks, and we're so happy to have you with us here, Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Liz. So I'm here to talk about implementing this program in a rural area. I'm in Shoshone, which is south central Idaho, south of Sun Valley, but closer to Twin Falls. I'm the only physician in a county with a land area larger than Rhode Island. There's no hospital here. There are no other physicians in the county. I have had integrated behavioral health in my patient-centered medical home, and that is very helpful in implementing the ACES program, but I don't think it would be essential. However, if you have a patient-centered medical home or are looking at forming one, integrated behavioral health would be a big plus in that if you could do it. Like Dr. Gillespie said, I have not found parents to be resistant to this at all, just the opposite. I've had a lot of patient compliments about it. It's similar in some ways to the screening we do for social determinants of health, where we ask about food insecurity and so forth. Most patients, the vast majority, express a positive feeling about us asking those kinds of questions. They're pleasantly surprised that we actually have concerns about the overall well-being of them and their families. And I think the parents really have a similar response usually. Of course, there will be some exceptions. As Dr. Gillespie said, I think the introduction of the questions is really important to make sure that they understand this is not a criminal investigation, but trying to help the health of their child or children and their family. I must say in my practice, most of the screening was done by my staff, similar to the social determinants of health. I would be following up on positives in that screening, but for the most part, it was really screening by staff and directing high ACE scores to the LCSW integrated into my practice. So that really worked out well, and I'll be happy to share other information through the course of this program. Thanks a lot.
So I'm going to ask you that same question that I asked Dr. Gillespie. To just remind us again, that you've had been doing this for quite a while now, and do you think that that the skills that you bring to this are what every physician and provider could do?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think there's any physician that would have difficulty with this. And I know that there can be concern about asking questions and you're not really sure what to do about the answers that you get. But I think opening the door and making sure that parents know that they can ask these questions, report these experiences for the benefit of the children is really important.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Davis. It's really a pleasure to hear from you today, and we look forward to working with you over the course of our learning collaborative.
Thank you, Liz.
Again, if you have thoughts thoughts about anything Dr. Davis or the ideas that have come to you about what either Dr. Davis or Dr. Gillespie have told us so far, please enter those in the chat. We can keep that an active part of this as well, even for those of you who are technologically challenged. So the faculty for this learning collaborative are Drs. Gillespie, Patterson, and Davis. I will serve as a moderator for these events and will also be providing some content to fill in. Many of you have heard from Liz Paul and Claudia Coatney, who have done much of the follow-up work, in getting people engaged in this, and they will be providing backup support for sure, and making sure that the logistics go smoothly. Liz has been staffing the project in its first phase, which began in early 2021, and we'll be talking more about that first phase of the project in a few minutes. So, Liz, if you could pull up the learning collaborative agreement, we want to just walk you through that a little bit, what our thoughts are here. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at this previously. It's kind of a black spot across there, Liz, if you can maybe either scroll it down or, yeah, okay. There you go. So hopefully, again, you've had a chance to look at this, but the idea behind it is that we'll provide 4 live learning sessions. We'll provide access to the homework and peer support in between. These CMEs are free, are provided through the grant that we have for this, and we will be providing a resource kit that will have a bunch of things that you can use with the parents of your patients. And then we're asking you to agree to attend the sessions, to the extent you have one, to form a team, to do the homework so that we can have really robust discussions, and to attend the peer mentoring sessions as possible, and to create a readiness or a sustainability plan depending on where you are in terms of implementing the screening process. So we've sent that to you. We'll resend it and ask that you send it back to us following this session. So thank you for that. Any questions about this? Any thoughts about whether this agreement is reasonable? Are we asking more than is reasonable in that? But hopefully not. Any thoughts or concerns about it? No? Okay. Great, thank you. So now
Dr. Patterson.
Oh, Dr. Patterson has his hand up, okay.
Yeah, I would just say that different than the first collaborative, which is the thing I heard from most people that they missed from the first collaborative, was the ongoing coaching. So you get into this, you start screening, you have questions, we will cover those in the ongoing coaching, and I'm so excited about that part. And I think for us, a sustainability planning is pivotal with that ongoing coaching.
Terrific. Good. Yeah, that is something we really are committed to in this piece of the work. So Tom started talking about I'd like to bring Dr. Tom Patterson, who really has been a champion for this effort, as I think many of you know, both for and since the 2019 Learning Collaborative. He told me that coming back from that conference in San Francisco with Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, changed his practice. And, I feel that every time that we talk about this. So, Tom, if you, and has definitely had a huge hand in guiding this process throughout.
Yeah, so thank you. It's so great to see all of you. I think Roger is exactly accurate. I knew little about ACEs. I went to the ACEs Aware conference in San Francisco, and I came home completely changed. I wrote University of Arizona. I wanted a refund of my entire education because they had trained me wrong. They had never told me about this. So I think that the number one thing I brought out of the conference is something that is powerful, and it's just listening is a powerful form of doing. And so just like the other questions to Dr. Gillespie and Dr. Davis, I don't have any special powers. I don't have a Harry Potter wand. I do nothing really special, but I ask. And so that is what starts the conversation. One of the most profound things from our last year collaborative with focus groups was a mom stated that she didn't think her doctor could handle her trauma. And it was just sad to think about like a parent saying like, I don't think I want to tell my doctor because I don't think they can handle it. So, I think the thing that I would say about handling it is I love that we're doing this in 4 sessions rather than a marathon, because that's the way we should be approaching ACEs and resilience building in the office in little microbursts. If you introduce ACEs, and I would say for each of you today, you may have ACEs. And so, be kind to yourself today, but parents too, they don't want an hour-long visit when we uncover the fact that we care about the ACEs. And so, doing it in small little tidbits, they learn better if we package it out small bits at a time. So I think the collaborative mirrors what you should be doing in the office, which is just small little packets of building resilience. It's easy to do, and I start in the newborn nursery doing it. I think we're already doing much of this. We screen for depression with the PHQ-9. I remember when I started doing that, I was scared to death. And the trouble is I was getting massive numbers of positives in kids I did not expect. The nice thing about ACE screening is many of your families have an ACE score of 0, 2, 1. And so you do it and you can go right into focusing on what they're doing right, focusing on teaching them more self-care, letting them know self-care is not selfish care, building on their strengths. And so the whole goal of this is when there is a positive, parents don't want a referral to counseling. They want peer group support. They want parenting lessons, and that's documented in multiple studies. So we as providers can provide that resilience building piece easily in the office. It just takes a paradigm shift for us to go from preventing or, fixing problems to preventing them. I dream of a day when we can do just well care. And I'll tell you about a patient of mine who they were always in, 3 kids, single mom, and always in with acute care visits, and the office visit, concern without, diagnosis was huge. When I taught mom self-care, she had not read a book for years. She's now reading a ton of books. She's taking time to do things fun with her family. She's doing things on her own that are resilience building for herself. And I don't see the children except for well care now. And it's so fun. ACE screen with her, I knew her as I was her pediatrician. I knew her ACE score ahead of it, and she had actually not scored some of the things that I had to remind her of from her childhood. And it was strong relationships that had buffered her trauma. So we're already doing a lot of this. It's powerful. We can improve parents' ability to parent. And, there's study after study that shows that we parent how we were parented. I think with intergenerational trauma, this explains it. And so if you go further with kind of epigenetics and methylation sites on DNA and, propagating this for 4 or 5 generations, we need to start now, and we need to go upstream as best we can. And so I think that's why I do it in the newborn nursery. I think screening at 4 months is awesome because there's not a lot of other screeners that we do then. Parents have been through 1 round of immunizations. They're kind of in their stride. They may be sleeping some more. So it's a good time to do it. I just think we teach parents about self-care, they start doing it. Children grow up knowing it's okay to do self-care. If parents never do self-care, the kids get the implicit message that it's not okay to do self-care. And now we've lost one more generation of kids who grew up without that superpower. If you want to talk about superpower, it's self-care. And myself, I know when I fall off my self-care wagon, I realize it because I get irritable. I'm not as happy. I wonder what the heck I'm doing. And then I realize, oh yeah, you haven't done self-care in a while. So I start back up and I feel a little bit better. So I think, the big message I want to give you is asking is a powerful form of doing. And then we already do this for so many other things. There's nothing special about talking about resilience. We already do it. We tell parents to get sleep when they can. Baby's sleeping, give sleep. Baby's awake, take care of the baby. Read to your children. We're already doing so much of the little things you can do to help improve that parent-child relation and improve outcomes for families, stop the intergenerational trauma. So ACE screening is not the end. It's the good stuff that comes after, as another mom said. So it's the good stuff that comes after. That was another one of my favorite comments from one of the parents in the focus groups is, oh, I get it. ACE is screening. That's the beginning for the good stuff that comes after. And that's the joy I have in doing ACEs screening. You all see me as tired in between patients, but when I'm in the room, I'm so excited to hear parents progress in terms of resilience building. So I can talk for hours, so I'm going to stop so we can stay on task, and we'll move on to the next segment if that's okay with everybody. And I'm happy to take questions at any time.
We do have a couple minutes if someone wanted to ask a question. I would entertain that.
I have a question. So I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand on them. So and so I'm very new to all of this. So I didn't go to Arizona for training, but I might as well have. So I'm looking up the acronym. What does ACEs stand for? And how is this different from, or is it the same as like trauma informed care? Because I'd listened to the Cribsiders podcast about that, and I was like, whoa, this is mind blowing. This sounds awesome. I want to read all about it. And then, is this the same, similar? Like I have no context for kind of where this is, like how to put all this and what we're supposed to do. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that ACEs is the beginning. So ACEs is becoming trauma aware. So your ACEs is aware, you become trauma aware, and then you move eventually to trauma informed. So I look at every single situation, even like vaccine refusal, vitamin K refusal, which hopefully no one has worked with me the last 36 hours, which has been my trend of everybody's refusing vitamin K. I look at like what's happened to them rather than what's wrong with them. And so if you can start to frame like what's happened to people and how that might be affecting their parenting and how that might be affecting the child patient or the child parent interaction, then you start figuring out that the rest of it comes in play. And so I think we can screen for depression, we can screen for anxiety, or we can screen for ACEs, discover the families that have had trauma, build resilience in those families. And I hope to practice long enough that I can start to see less adolescent depression because we're building resilience in our families.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
So ACE is aware, PACE is aware, and is a great website, and you will see their whole idea was awareness, access or action, and then access. So their awareness was teaching about ACEs in California. Then their, action was building coalitions of people that were ACE screening. And then their access was actually having trauma-informed clinics where people could be seen. And that's the goal here, is that people can come in, and we're really good at like letting our refugees know that they're welcome at our practice. Our LGBTQ community are welcome at our practice. You could walk into our lobbies and see like, oh, I'm safe here. We don't have a suitcase with trauma vomiting out of it, hanging on the wall anywhere. So you walk in and everyone's like, I think I'm going to just keep this to myself today. But when you ask, people tell you everything. I say a simple thing like, you don't have to tell me today. I know you've had some trauma. I'd like to hear your story someday because I care. And suddenly I'm hearing about like the drugs their mom took when they were pregnant with the mom. Like, and then, you know, the dad dropped the baby on day of life 3. And, you know, I hear everything. So does that help?
Yeah, no, it just helped because it's all new. And so then just trying to even just get the language to be able to understand the context. So if ACEs leads to trauma-informed care, that's really helpful for that.
I remember being there, Savara, and I found myself like the Monday after getting back from the meeting in California in the clinic alone, like at 6 o'clock with a kid who had an ACE score of 6, I knew, and mom had an ACE score of 8, I knew, because I had been taking care of the family forever. And I was like, I don't have all the tools, but I'm going to do it right now. And so I jumped into the swimming pool, and man, I've been swimming ever since, and the waters are getting easier to swim in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're starting to hear a little bit of what we hope will be really the revelations that we'll have, and then some of the, skill building that we'll be able to add to it. You've heard a little bit about what to do as, when people, when physicians do encounter families or patients who have had a difficult childhood. But we also know that both positive and adverse experiences impact, relational, behavioral, and physical health. It seems, though, that we do tend to focus often on, and I think for you all too, to focus on the adverse problems, the difficulties, rather than the positive childhood experiences. But what we are learning is that positive childhood experiences, although a newer branch in our understanding, really are, can mitigate the impacts of ACEs, and that, they're the things that we can help build, as we try to build wellness with patients that you work with, or, in my case, with the families and so on that we work with. Do you want to show that slide, Liz, on the personal child or the positive childhood experiences? So Dr. Bob Sege has kind of been from Tufts University, and Christina Bethel from Johns Hopkins have been leaders in this effort to think about positive childhood experiences. And what they have found is that, and this might, Dr. Mansour might give another way to think about what you were thinking about in terms of trauma-informed care, is that positive childhood experiences lead to resilience and lead to better health outcomes for the family overall, for both the parents and for the kids involved, because they prevent ACEs, they block toxic stress, and they promote healing. And so that is really what we hope will be the outcome of the work that we're doing now. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the idea of positive childhood experiences. So these are the positive childhood experiences that have been studied. And I think you'd probably recognize that positive childhood experiences probably come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, but these ones were added to the behavioral risk factors surveillance survey process in the state of Wisconsin, and then used to extrapolate a bunch of things around the idea of positive childhood experiences. So you can see that some of these are really things that maybe a lot of people can take for granted, but you can't necessarily, right? In a lot of people's lives, this wasn't the way that it happened, that they didn't necessarily have the ability to talk about feelings, that they didn't feel like they belonged to high school. But these are things that we can also build, knowing what kinds of things actually have positive influence on people's lives. Also give us the opportunity to look at how relationships, environments, and other things are building blocks for preventing childhood struggles or challenges in the family overall. And I think the real thing that we really want to make sure you understand is that you can help parents practice these positive parenting by, basically prescribing positive childhood experiences for their kids. As both Drs. Gillespie and Dr. Patterson have said, most parents don't really need mental health counseling so much as they need to know that someone cares and has faith in them and has faith in them as a parent, so that they can move forward and support their kids in the best way possible. And you can really help by really suggesting some positive activities that they can be involved in. And, in the third session of this learning collaborative, we will be focusing pretty much solely on providing resources. We're also in the midst of creating a toolkit, which we're going to make available to, everybody who's participating to use in their practices. And it will have handouts and different things that you can use with the parents you're working with. So I hope that you have had the opportunity to review the screening tool that we shared. And so that's what we're going to look at next, to give you a sense of the, what the screening will ask for, and then, how that can help to lead to the conversations that Dr. Patterson was talking about. So the first part of it, and I think Dr. Gillespie raised this. Could you move down a little further? Yeah, is a cover sheet, cover letter, basically describing why you're screening for ACEs, giving them a little idea of what adverse childhood experiences are and what positive childhood experiences are, and then why it would be important for you to know that. And that's to get at, what Dr. Gillespie said about the patient with the tight grip on the clipboard, is to provide really provide some explanation for it. And obviously you can enhance this in your conversation with the patient. And, just for them to, and you'll hear a little bit more about this as we go into the guidance document, but, what we heard a ton about was just really that, parents are very willing to do this if they feel like they know why it's being done and that it's going to be used for something positive. And then we've provided this, gives a little more background on ACEs and on positive childhood experiences, so people can kind of see that for themselves. Knowledge is power, I think, in this case. And then we go into what are the traditional ACE questions, which are in the part 1. So those run through all of the ACE questions that, and these are, we're not asking them to give a checkbox on that, but to really just give a score. And then some other areas about whether they're in foster care, if they'd experienced violence in their neighborhood, if they had been treated badly because of race or ethnicity and religion or their sexual orientation. So, or were they bullied? And then the second section of this, or the third section of this, is a question about those positive childhood experiences. And that should give you a pretty good sense of the, of kind of a, at least a baseline for understanding those patients and what they've been through. If you haven't had the kind of experience like Dr. Patterson was saying about, having had the person as a child, patient, then you might know a whole lot about it. So those are the, so overall, that is the plan for the screener. And this screener's based around the screener that Dr. Gillespie has sort of evolved over the years. So I just want to ask we've asked Dr. Ulmer, who has also been doing screening, to comment on his experience a little bit and what, how this screening has worked in his practice. So Dr. Ulmer?
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so over the last couple years, we've given out the questionnaire for parents of at the 4-month visit, or to a parent, and overall it's been a positive experience. I guess one of the early on and most impactful experiences for me was when I came into the room and the mom referring to the questionnaire said, "I feel like this was sent from God." And I think it was in Spanish, but those were basically her words. And in that experience, obviously, it led to some good discussion and some good. We were able to pursue some help and some resources. I think a lot of, and Dr. Patterson kind of alluded to this, a lot of times there are low scores, and so I feel like I need to do better in those situations, just with talking more about the good things and self-care. But there have been several instances where we were able to have some conversation, and I guess it probably did in some cases allow for future conversations. I only have had one specific experience where the person that completed the questionnaire shared some negative things about the questionnaire itself, and I think, of course, in my mind, there's probably a lot there to explore. But overall, it's been very positive, and I feel like I want to learn a little bit more with resilience and resources to help me dive in a little bit deeper, because a lot of them, well, with the low scores, we don't spend too much time, and then some with the scores I spend some time, but I feel like if I gain more knowledge and know a little bit more as far as resources and just coaching, that I'll be able to devote hopefully a little bit more time and effort, which is a challenge, I think, every day. Looking back at the morning today, there's a family that I need to have more of these conversations with, and I didn't necessarily get to today. But I'm learning now about the positive childhood experiences, and I'm eager to include that and incorporate that. So overall, I'm learning and have had some positive experiences, and look forward to learning a lot more and hopefully being able to help more families that way.
Thank you, Dr. Omer. I'm sure what you're doing already is helpful, and yeah, hopefully we'll all be learning more as we go along. So do people have any questions about the survey or the screening tool itself? We have chosen to use the de-identify survey, which just gives a number and doesn't give the specifics about which of the ACEs would be that the person would have. And, I don't know if that's a question you might have about, why would we go that direction, or are there other questions you have about the screening tool or the assessment tool?
Dr. Manser raised her hand.
Thank you. I figured out how to do it. Now I'm going to lower the hand too. Okay. You'd think after 2 years of pandemic, I'd figure it out. But my question, so it sounds like you give the first one at the 4-month visit, because that's after the first set of shots and mom should be sleeping better. And then what if you have new patients? Do you do it then just at like the first visit, or when do you give the screening? And then also, what about if you give it in like where there's a teenager in the room, and then maybe mom hasn't had these conversations with her child who could maybe understand, like, do you have the child leave the room? Like, if they're talking about things that they haven't shared with their own children, or if it's like a 9-year-old and they're not ready to have those conversations, like, how do you handle that? It's part of the screening.
Yeah, I think I can take that if you're okay with that, Roger. I think screening at 4 months is great. I think ultimately we would get everybody taken care of with that, but I have screened older kids I've screened some kids, and again, I had to remind them that both their parents have been in jail for drug abuse. So they said they were a 2, and I said they were a 5 because I knew all their ACEs, and that's part of the benefit of longitudinal care. But if they were brand new to me, I would do it the same way I do with that, 11, 12-year-old visit where you should be having the puberty talk, but maybe you read the room and ask permission before you do those things. Is it okay if we talk about puberty today? Is it okay if we talk about your childhood today? And if mom says, oh, my childhood was great, wink, wink, then I would follow up more with the child outside the room. But overall, I think when you ask, it's a powerful form of doing, and parents get it out in the open. Then they realize, okay, my kids need to understand the transparency of this and understand part of the reason. Like, I was very clear with my children when I knew that my parenting was influenced by the way I was parented. And I let them know that, and I don't think they had a particular complaint. They're all adults and they come home to visit and they want us to go out and party with them. So I think we have a good relationship now. We text every day and they're all adults living on their own. So I feel like that's pretty good evidence that they didn't get traumatized by me sharing that with them. But, I think it's a sensitive time, but I think by and large, the vast majority of patients, when you ask, they share. So many of them have never, ever, ever had anybody ask about the way they were raised. And yet it's so vitally important because we know the way we were raised is the way we raise our children. And you see it in families. And sadly, I have one family where every single male in the family is on the sex offender list. And every single female in that family has a score that's high. And I can tell you the one of the whole group that's doing well has good relationships. And I'm so happy I'm one of those relationships. And so, I think there's so much that we do as pediatricians that already fits into the ACE toolkit, like praising children in front of their parents to show the parents like it's okay to praise your children. That builds them up. That increases their self-esteem. I'm a big fan of the Fear Center. The brain is here, the Thinking and Feeling Center here, and they're not connected till we're 25. And so we have co-regulators called parents, and every time those co-regulators soothe us, serve a need, satisfy us, put the Band-Aid on, we gain a step. And so when I'm in the room, part of my resilience building, strengthening the family is just being a positive role model. Like, thank you for being so polite today, or thank you for following my instructions so well. Sometimes I get very simple if the kid's being kind of, a little bit, difficult that day. I get really simple. Hey, you're breathing really well. Thanks for breathing when I needed you to. just to role model what positive parenting looks like. And did I parent perfect? No, but I was transparent when I messed up. And so I think that's okay to teach parents as well. And I just think by and large, when people are asked about their past from someone who's in a position of trust with them, it's amazing what can happen. And I don't know if you all saw me wiping tears when Omer talked about of the Bob saying it was from God, because I've had that same thing happen to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for all of us, this can bring up a whole lot, both with us and with our patients. So it's with your patients, so it's it's not like it's not a difficult conversation. It's just one that needs to be had. I guess I want to give one more opportunity. I know we're sort of at the time I'm supposed to be doing something else, but I wanted to real quick, if there was anything that people had questions about in terms of the screener, in terms of the, anything related to the screener, I guess. Dr. Gillespie will talk more about it, and certainly feel free to ask him. I mean, it is really it's a tool that he developed from other sources. Obviously, it has much research and evidence behind it, but he kind of pulled some pieces together to create what you just saw. And we obviously can keep talking about it, throughout this whole collaborative process.
Yeah, and he started right where we're suggesting to start as 4-month screeners. And he started nervous, just like we do. And now he's such an accomplished trauma-informed doc. I'm honored when I share a screen with him on a meeting.
We did hear from parents that they'd be happy to have it earlier. If we can bring in some OBs later on, to this, that would be great. Because I think sometimes it's like let's do it before it happens, before it even starts, and when I'm sort of in that receptive mode for learning about having a kid, so just to move on, the next part of this, we're going to talk about this guidance document. I just want to give a little bit of background of where we started with this. So about a year or so ago, or a little over a year ago, we started phase 1 of the project. And that was focused on, we create a series of focus groups across the state. We talked with more than 80 parents, including a fully Spanish-speaking group and a couple of groups from the Shoshone Bannock and Nez Perce tribes to get a handle on kind of cultural differences also that might arise in this. So we can do some perspective on that. Then we had a parent advisory group, and our project staff then reviewed, synthesized all of the conversations into the guidance document that I hope you've had a chance to review. And if you haven't, I hope you will get it. We'll take the opportunity to do so. They developed out of that a series of recommendations and advice about conducting a screening and what kind of follow-up conversations that would be, from a parent perspective, that would be respectful and that really can help to empower the parents. And I know that some of the thing that we have heard from physicians is that, it's an awkward kind of conversation sometimes, and they don't know whether parents want to be in those discussions. But what we learned a lot about was that really parents, once parents felt like this was going to be done for their, for their benefit and for the benefit of their kids, they were more than happy to be involved. We heard that from the doctors who've talked about this. But we heard it from the parents as well, very strongly came across, initially people had lots of things that, that Dr. Gillespie sort of presaged, which are, the things like, am I going to get turned into CPS? Am I going to, is this going to, am I going to be judged? And, all those kinds of things that I think are, probably come up in your mind. But what we heard more, we heard so much more from people that, if this was for the benefit of their kids, they were all in. So, so again, we developed those recommendations, and so Tom and I are going to run through those recommendations and other features of the guidance document to give you a better picture of it. Liz has already pulled up the slides. So, and hopefully, one of the really important things we think is true is that this guidance will increase the likelihood of reliability of the screening. That people told us pretty clearly that if they're thinking that this is going to be used for some nefarious purpose, they will most likely lie. And so if we really want reliable information, it really is incumbent on us to have conversations with people that are that really show that we care and that help build those relationships. So Liz, if you just go ahead and hit the next one. So, this is the goal, right? The goal of the screening is to increase the use of the parental ACE screening and the PCE screening in medical practices to improve parenting and health outcomes. And the thing that we've just added to this is through longitudinal support, because that's what we feel like is the thing that we're adding to this learning collaborative, is to provide ongoing coaching and support for people who are moving forward in this work. And we'll talk about how we're going to start that, in between this and the next session. So, so why do ACE screening?
Yeah, so, the original ACE screening came about through Dr. Gillespie and Robert Anda, and they came up and they looked at 10 different types of trauma and abuse, emotional, sexual, physical, family dysfunction, whether a parent's incarcerated or I would even say close relative can be traumatizing, mother treated violently in the house, mental illness, parental divorce, substance abuse, and the neglect, either physical or emotional. And so those were the original ACE categories, but I think that was in 1998. Let's talk about growing up in 2022. Let's talk about social media as a trauma. Let's talk about, pornography as a trauma. Let's talk about, you name it. When I was a kid, I rode across Phoenix, Arizona on my bike by myself to go see a friend. Now kids aren't allowed to walk to the mailbox by themselves in some communities. So Liz, next slide, please. So if we look at the BRFIS data, if we see Idaho, 4 or more ACEs were 23%. The US is on average 16%. 2 to 3 ACEs, 21% versus 21% for 1 ACE, 23.5. So we have fewer people with lower ACEs and we have greater people with higher ACEs. And, 65% of Idahoans have had, at least one adverse experience, and 23 of them have had 4 or more. So it's pretty amazing when you think about why we need to do this. We need to do this to stop this trend of intergenerational trauma. And so this is looking at, I believe, Idaho. And this was emotional abuse was high, divorce, separated parents, household member who was a problem, household member who was depressed. And, you can see 1 in 8 Idahoans, suffered sexual abuse, 1 in 6 physically abused, 1 in 6 witnessed violence in the home, 1 in 4 dealt with a parent with a substance issue, and 1 in 3 have had emotional abuse. So I don't think there's very many people you can walk by on the street that haven't had at least some trauma. If you live in Nampa, you die 9 years sooner if you live on the north side versus the south side. So this is the classic ACE pyramid. And, if we cover up the opportunities to intervene, this was the one that I learned. So you have the adverse experience that disrupts your neurodevelopment, your social, emotional, and cognitive, abilities become impaired. Oftentimes you adopt health risk behaviors. Sometimes you adopt healthy behaviors. But if you don't adopt healthy behaviors, you progress on to disease, disability, social problems, and early death. And I think this is the new thinking is any of these areas you can intervene and change the outcome for children and families. So this is an RJ Gillespie slide, and I've talked about some of this, so I'll zip through this pretty quick. The more ACEs a parent has, the more ACEs a child's likely to experience. And this happens to be because of what I talked about. We parent how we are parented. Next one, I covered that already. I breathe this, so I cut ahead oftentimes. Next one, Liz. So, I think this one's one that I share in the newborn nursery that blows people's minds. In the first 6 months after a child is born, parents' prefrontal cortex, thinking and feeling brain grows in mass. And so the last time, say it's their first baby, the last time their brain grew was when they were 4 to 5, right? And so now we're getting brain growth in the thinking and feeling part of the brain. And parents love that. The one caveat is mom's maternal health has to be good. Next one. And so we know with relation to education, if kids have 3 or more ACEs going into kindergarten, they have lower readiness scores. Their literacy, language, and math skills are lower. The amount of referrals for behavior issues is higher. It's pretty crazy. American Academy of Pediatrics published a Harvard study where they looked at 2 kindergarten classes. One, the teacher taught resilience, self-care. The other practiced self-care but didn't teach it. The kids who had better grades and lower referrals for discipline were the teacher. It was the teacher that practiced self-care but didn't teach it. So that's something I tell parents. Kids watch everything we do. They repeat a few of the things we don't want them to, and they listen to some of the rest we say. So if we aren't building resilience in ourselves, they don't have the permission to build resilience in themselves. Next slide. So the AAP has a ton of information. This statement, just having a safe, stable, nurturing relationship is a universal biologic imperative for children to fulfill their potential, to be healthy and resilient, to be successful academically, economically, and socially, and most importantly, to become the caregivers that value and build positive relationships with subsequent generations. So relationships are the #1 social determinant of health. And the AAP has ongoing energy towards the AAP Resilience Project, which is a great resource as well. Next slide. So Roger and I will share this next section. This is looking at the parental ACEs screening with the cohorts that we had across the Head Starts in each of the health districts last year.
And so we've tried to weave in comments so you can kind of get, a flavor for what we were hearing from the parents, So, one of the things they said, spin it as empowerment, not as an anchor, right? That, your ACE score is a way to, once you're talking about it, it's the way up, not the way down.
So, this is what we've talked about. They want to know ahead of time, what are you doing with this information? How is it going to be used for us or against us? And so, when doctors ask questions, I don't always give the best answer because I feel I'm being judged. Pause on that for a moment. That one was hard for me to read. Next slide.
No, next slide. Yeah, okay. And I think we've talked about this a lot, and this is something I think shared by both parents and by physicians, is that that you need to know that there's some follow-up possible, and know what the resources are. I mean, Dr. Patterson, has talked a lot about really the importance really of asking the question, but there are also times when people want peer support of various kinds, and we again are going to be providing that hopefully in spades. So, really, after the person answers the question, the doctor should have helpful resources to give to them. Providing the resources is important as asking the questions. And so, that people really want to know that something's going to happen if they're going to talk about something difficult. They want to know that there's going to be something done about it.
And so, they want to get information about what's going on ahead of time. I think this is hard to do with flow of practice, but figure out what's best for your practice. Just by knowing that it's something that's going to be a benefit to you or your children and family, that's a motivation to answer truthfully. When you know the benefits, you'll honestly answer. And so I think that's the clarity and the transparency. Why are we doing this, and what are we going to do with the information? The nice thing about doing a 4-month-old is I'm asking mom about her childhood, dad about his childhood. The reporting is not an issue, right? So I've made no CPS referrals, and coming up on 3 years, I've been doing ACE screening. So next slide.
So then, again, I think this comes back to the AAP relational health discussion. Really, is that having a trusting and well-established relationship, gives you the most reliable information that you're going to get, and gives you the most potential for, improving the health and the outcomes of the parent-child relationship as well. And what amazing things you can do. That's why we're so excited about having doctors involved in this, is because you are a trusted voice, a trusted person in people's lives. And, if you can listen and open up to this, you can really have, an amazing impact.
And so, this needs to be easy for the parent and caregiver, to do the screening, have a calm, unrushed, private environment. This spoke a little bit to Dr. Mansour's question of, screening in front of the children versus a time private. Some people want it sent ahead of time. Other people are like, shoot, some of my abuse comes from my spouse. I don't want to have this sent to my email and him see it, or her see it. And so, do what you feel is best for your patient. But I think trying to do it in a way that meets the needs of the patient is important. So one parent said the doctor should present the information to you at one appointment, then ask the questions at the next appointment. Then you can get prepared as to what you'll be answering, because you might start crying in front of your kids. So I think something I would love to start doing is handing out the explanation at 2-month well-child check, and then again at the 4-month well-child check with a screener.
So we did get some really culturally specific things that I think you probably know if you have patients who are, either Latino or Native American. But some of the things were that, that the Latino community may be less open to this. And so, but, there are opportunities to have that discussion. It just might take a little longer. In the tribal community, there was a lot of interest in the idea that language makes a direct connection, recognizing some of the cultural differences. And you may not have that opportunity to be able to speak the language, but it is an important thing to recognize that they may be coming at this from a different point of view. And then, the other specialized focus group we did was with foster care alumni. Some young people who had experience with the foster care system, and they had some real reluctance to answer questionnaires and screenings and so on, because they felt like they were over surveyed, so again, I think what Dr. Patterson just said is right on, is it's like figuring out what's going to work for these different populations, but being aware that there are differences and that you can speak to them. And so these are just some quick, we'll, again, in the document, there's a ton of different kind of resources. We have resources that are about scripts and, other potential ways you can even start conversations. There's some specific things that, can help empower parents, through some concrete supports, through various kinds of peer support and self-help and professional referrals. We are, looking at professional referrals sort of as the last thing, necessarily for a lot of people. They don't really need, to get the next level of specialty, but they need support and so on. And we're gonna provide you with some opportunities for community partnerships and so on that can help you to, you don't have to do everything. We want to, create this as a community-wide thing, but those of us, involved in the social service side of the world, providing some of the resources that you might need to support the patients that you have. So
yeah, I think if I can add, Dr. Gillespie talks about like the people that need a referral to a mental health professional. Doing the magic work that you already do, you probably already referred them to a mental health specialist. The ACE score just gives you more of the what happened to them rather than what's wrong with them, because you identified at some point something was wrong with them. So you referred them to a mental health professional. And the ACE screen lets you understand something happened to them, not something was wrong with them. But you've already made the referral.
Right. And I don't know, this is one of our favorite quotes. I think we just got to bring it up all the time. But, again, it comes back to what I think we've said throughout, which is that, I believe parents want a better life for their children. And, and that's sort of the fundamental piece of this, is how do we help them be the best parents they can be? And, again, you're not responsible for all of it, but you can play a big role in it. Maybe we have a couple of minutes for, if anybody has any questions or responses to this. I mean, we'll get deeper into all of this over time, but if there's anything else that people are, this brought up for you, or questions you have, anybody who's new to this, or Dr. Davis or others who have experience, if there's things that you want to add.
I think just looking at the screen, everybody needs to take a big breath or two. This can be terribly, terribly stressful. And so I would urge you to do something kind for yourself today. It's Friday, whatever makes you feel like you're driving the steamroller rather than running to see if you're going to get squashed, do it today. I worry so often when we bring up things about ACEs that it can activate some past memories for us as well. And it's a very powerful situation. For some reason, my eyes sweat sometimes. And, I think that is just showing patients that I'm human and I care. And so, I truly think when you launch into this, you got to have your own self-care plan and have it in place and solid before we start running on this.
Anybody have anything they want to add before we go into the homework discussion? Okay. So we just want to give you kind of the last logistical details, I guess, and to get this moving forward. We will, I think Liz is going to pop the pre-test / evaluation into the chat and give us a list of the things that are coming up. We will send this out as well. So in order to get the CME credit, please do the pre-test / evaluation that we'll send out in the email. And I think that Liz will put up in the chat so you can click on it. Please sign and return the Learning Collaborative Agreement so that we have that in place so that we can establish your place in this CME part, in the CME process. We've asked you to watch this 25-minute video of Dr. Gillespie, and which is really good. It gives a lot of great information. Ask Dr. Gillespie at least one question via email. So we've created an email that's called acesaskrj@gmail.com. So you can send a question to him, and he's open to beginning this conversation with us. Tom, do you want to talk a minute about the plan for October 12th at noon?
That
for the peer mentoring session.
Yeah, what we had really wanted to do is have a group with all of the mentors, coaches, whatever you would call us, ACE aware, trauma-informed docs. We would have a meeting with all of you to kind of give the expectations, get your expectations, and then what we're hoping to do, and I don't think everybody that signed up is on the call today, will hopefully pair people with a mentor that fits their demographic. Keith, you're going to get all the rural people. I would say Dr. Davis took our first learning collaborative, and he went, like, if we stopped at exit 1, he went to exit 10. So anyway, it's just really it's going to be a great time for us to get together and be thinking of questions you want to ask. I hate to call myself an expert, but Dr. Davis and Dr. Gillespie are certainly experts in this field. I'm so happy that we have them agreeing to coach alongside us.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we call it a learning collaborative, right? Is because it's to learn and to, and to grow together and to, learn together, and everybody is on that journey. Let's see. So then, so we've set that for October 12th. That was a time that worked for Dr. Patterson. Hopefully that works for many of you. I don't know, since many of you are in the same practice, I wonder if it will work, but if we can't do it in one session, we may have to do a couple, but we want to get one in before it. We would like to do that as sort of an orientation session prior to our next meeting on October 14th. Right? Is that right? Is that the right date? No, October 20th. I have something else on October 14th. Sorry, October 20th, and we'll send all that out again. If you're going to have a parental ACEs screening team, if you have a team that you're going to be, we'd love for you to meet with them and to start this conversation. I think our understanding is that the more of the team from reception to to the doctor that's involved in this, the stronger you are in being able to promote this kind of an effort. And then there'll be some materials on readiness, and if you can start thinking at least about your readiness or your sustainability plan for going forward, that's also in the homework. So appreciate all of you. I don't know, we have a couple of minutes if there are any more questions or comments that people want to make.
And I will send out the recording the beginning of next week. So anybody who came in a little bit late and didn't get to hear all of Dr. Gillespie's video, you'll be able to watch it, and you can watch it again and again and show it to other people too, and Dr. Davis's.
Okay, Friday afternoon, you get 2 minutes back. All right, we're generous around here.
And if anyone has questions, please reach out to me too. I would love to be a resource to all of you. I'm so thankful to see each one of you and your commitment to do this. It's so fun. We're making some headway. So it's awesome.
Hopefully this was useful. Hopefully in the future we'll have more discussion, so you won't feel like we're just talking at you, but hopefully the things we did talk at you about were useful, and you can sort of pick up from there. Again, appreciate you all.